the Nonprofit Podcast, powered by DonorBox.
Picture this. You have just 5 minutes to explain all about your nonprofit. How do you capture your audience's attention in those short-lived moments? Well, no stress, because today we've got 3 actionable tips to share with you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. I'm Brittan, nonprofit strategist here at DonorBox. We are here each week with practical actions you can use today to increase donations and take your nonprofit to the next level tomorrow. Today, we are tackling an so important topic for nonprofits, mastering the art of the elevator pitch. Joining me is Cara, a seasoned fundraiser, currently the executive director of the Grace Care Center Foundation, and our frontline correspondent. Cara's a pro at running impactful programs, and gosh, I've learned so much from her. Cara, thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Well, thanks, Britt. I'm really excited to be here, especially because this topic has been weighing so heavily on my mind lately. And I've been thinking a lot about the importance of storytelling and connection and really trying to convey a big message in a really short time frame, particularly as I prepare for an upcoming funding pitch for the nonprofit I lead. So that's kind of what brought it to the top of my mind.
Whew. It sounds like you're gearing up for something so busy at the center over there. Let's go ahead. I want to get started with the basics. So why is having an elevator pitch so important for nonprofits?
You never get a second chance at a first impression. And an elevator pitch is like a snapshot of your organization's mission and impact. It's a concise and compelling way to communicate what you do, why it matters, and especially when you have really limited time to make an impression, it's called an elevator pitch because if you are in an elevator with someone, you have a very short time to tell them all about yourself. So, you really need to be able to deliver it clearly and concisely.
Such a great point. Now, for folks tuning in who might feel overwhelmed by the pressure to craft this perfect elevator pitch, what advice would you offer, Cara, to really ease their minds and just give them some reassurance?
I think it's important to remember that you don't have to stress about memorizing a script or delivering a pitch flawlessly. And I have 3 tips today. So first, what really resonates with people is authenticity and passion. So instead of just focusing on a rehearsed pitch, instead focus on sharing why you care about your organization's mission. When you speak from your heart, that authenticity shines through and it can be incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. When donors know we're not just going through the motions, but we're really speaking from our hearts, we're really building and we're tapping into those stronger bonds, which leads me to the next tip. What do you have for me for tip number 2?
Well, one approach is to share a personal story or an experience that really illustrates why the cause is meaningful to you. So people relate to stories and they can really help bring your mission to life in a way that statistics and data alone can't. So maybe reflect on a moment or an experience that inspired your passion for the cause. For example, I was with one of our care center clients a couple of weeks ago. Her name's Patty. Patty and I have daughters that are about the same age, and Patty's been trying to learn English and is in our level 3 of 4 levels in our English program. And she shared with me how meaningful it is to her because her daughter is a rock star high school student. And now that mom knows a little English, she can communicate with her daughter's teachers, with her daughter's guidance counselor. And this was the part that really stood out to her. She can now better understand that there are options for college and some other things that are post-high school education. And those could be a generational game changer for their family. So I could have just said, we offer English classes to help people. But by telling Patty's story, you might remember it just a little bit better. So it really puts some oomph behind what we do, and it opens the door into why we do it.
So what do you have next for us?
Well, the next is about showcasing impact. So it's not just about bombarding donors with numbers and statistics. Like I said, it's shedding light on all of those in-between moments that get lost in the shuffle. So for instance, in this pitch I'm prepping for, I originally, had prepared to say we distributed $1.5 million of food last year. We had 551 one-on-one meetings, and we helped 130 English learners each semester. Well, I realized a couple things there. So first, no one was going to remember what I was all rattling off. I was stumbling over my own words, and I had limited time to make my case. And so, second, those numbers were hard to say, and they were eating time. And then third, if I say we did this and we did this and we did this, I might also just leave my supporters wondering why they even needed help at all. And so they might be thinking, gosh, they do a lot. They don't need me. So instead, I shared that more people than ever coming through the doors, food is flying off the shelves, and so on. And I tried to paint a visual picture and convey the same message of impact, if that makes sense. And so you can bring in stories. So instead of overwhelming donors with data, really highlight stories of those we've helped, the milestones you've achieved, and the behind-the-scenes glimpses that really showcase the operations. And these stories allow you to connect with donors on a deeper level, make that tangible connection, and really put impact behind the generosity that they provided to make it all happen.
Gosh, I hear all of this. It's really about going beyond those numbers, getting to the why of what you do, and just really showing the real change of the impact that your nonprofit is making. So let's go ahead and talk about your final tip, number 3. What's your take there?
So tip 3 is just about not being afraid to let your authentic passion and emotion shine through when talking about why you care. So whether it's your enthusiasm or your empathy or just even righteous anger, expressing genuine emotion can help you connect with your audience. People are more likely to be moved by your message when they can see and feel your authentic commitment to the cause. So don't be afraid to be genuine. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Let your passion and emotion show, because that kind of authenticity is what builds trust and connection with your audience.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a great point, Cara, which it's so easy to get lost into this shuffle of everyday nonprofit life, right? And we lose sight of our core values. I bet many of our listeners here are feeling and they're thinking, Cara, this all sounds great, but how do I actually make it happen? And so how do we turn these great ideas into action? And what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I know our schedules are busy. Buried under grant applications, we're planning major events, we're planning giving campaigns, doing some admin, but there's real power in community here. And so here's a practical idea. I've done it before with a couple different groups. Host a workshop for your board, for your volunteers, for your advocates, whoever it is, those people who are part of your mission and telling the story on your behalf. That's who you'll want to bring around the table. And take some time, pair up into groups, and instead of asking each other to try to express what we do as an organization, ask each person in the room to turn to another and share, why do you care? And so it's easier to remember why you're personally involved or what matters to you instead of 3 or 4 talking points that are pushed out at the organizational level. You'll never forget why you care, and you'll always have something on hand if you're in a situation where you're asked, oh, your organization, I've heard of that. What do you do again? So it's good to know in your heart and be able to verbalize why you care.
It makes complete sense. And I think this is a lot easier to remember for sure. Thanks so much for these practical tips. But before we wrap up, you had mentioned earlier how this topic, it's really been on your mind lately, right? And I am so curious, how do you plan to apply these tips over there at Grace Center Foundation? What is on your agenda for the week? We would all love to know.
Well, I've actually had to reach into this several times over the past couple of weeks. So when you do the upfront work to organize your thoughts and get your elevator pitch ready, I think you might be surprised at how often you repurpose those thoughts. So for instance, I had a major donor meeting a couple of weeks ago, and this couple were very generous supporters a few years ago, but had recently stopped giving. And so when I was able to spend some time with them, I was able to share information about the organization in a highly personal way that captured their attention because they could feel my heart in it. And then I had lunch with an organization yesterday that's known in the community for generous grant making, but they were really unfamiliar with what we do. And so I was able to use this approach in that conversation too. Today, I filled out a grant application and I used the same wording that I had used in both of those experiences as well. I created an impact report. We repurposed that content again for the report. We've adapted it for social media posts. And tonight, I'll pitch it live from a stage to some potential supporters. So it's those same core pillars, that same story. It's just delivered to different people in different ways. I don't have to recreate the wheel every time. And should I ever find myself in an elevator with Mark Cuban or his Shark Tank friends, I will be ready.
Oh my gosh. It sounds like you are in the thick of it. Super busy, but it's so exciting, right? I am so inspired. Cara, you know this. I just appreciate so much wisdom that you share with all of us today. It is always such a joy to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Oh, anytime, Britt. I love the Nonprofit Podcast, and I truly believe that when we're real, when we're open, we can build strong bonds with our supporters and make some serious change happen.
Let's tell our listeners, I am sure you're feeling as inspired as I am after this conversation. It's a clear reminder that authentic connection should always be at the heart of what we do. And of course, we have a great resource for you, a blog to walk you through the fundamentals of making your moment on the elevator meaningful for your mission. You'll find the link to how to craft an effective nonprofit elevator pitch in the show notes. Thank you for joining us on the Nonprofit Podcast. I hope you've left with the confidence to take a small step today that will make a big difference tomorrow. Don't forget to hit that download button, leave us a review, and if you are listening on YouTube, like and subscribe to our Donor Box channel. You're here to help others. We're here to help you. Until next time, stay inspired.
That warm feeling when you help someone, it's not just happiness, it's fulfillment. And we believe it should be available to everyone, from frontline heroes to first-time fundraisers. Our tools empower you to help others. This is our mission. This is Donor Box, helping you help others.